Okay.
Hello, welcome to the webinar, and we'll get started in a minute as we have folks kind of pile in through. So welcome. Shirley Plant and Faul are here for our Real Food Summit conversation, and we're looking so forward to this. I hope everyone can hear us fine. Shirley convinced me to conduct this from my kitchen so I could have my nice
forks and spoons
behind me, so we could have a nice chat in my kitchen. I'm usually a little bit more formal. I'm in my office. I got backdrop with my logo. This is just a chat, although I do have my logo shirt on.
Very nice.
And thanks everyone for signing up and registering. We've got such an exciting hour for you. Shirley Plant is one of my favorite plant people on the planet.
Funny girl.
Shirley will tell you a little bit about her story, but let me just open up by telling you a little bit about my story and how I got to be focused on eating real food. 6 years ago, I was diagnosed with breast cancer, and it was certainly not anything that I had expected. I was a lifelong runner. I felt that I ate pretty healthy. But, you know, I guess I'm one of those people who I'm more sensitive to different things in the environment than the average person. And after my breast cancer diagnosis, I really took a full, wholesome look at everything that was chemical or toxin causing in my body. And as a matter of fact, I have an event April 25th, so sign up at mymostlife.com. We're going live for 5-year planning. At that event, I'm actually going to share with you some of the things that I use for body creams, face creams, deodorants, toothpastes, etc. I really cleaned my entire chemical repertoire. And certain things dawned on me, and that was that everything that is absorbed into our body is used by our body, or it has to be excreted in some way. And I studied almost as much as I possibly could, and I eventually became certified in plant-based nutrition after I read the book, The China Study. And if anyone who's on this webinar has not read The China Study, I urge you to read that book. It will give you the intellectual motivation to move away from certain foods that are oh so popular in our modernized, industrialized, agriculturalized world that we live in. And real food and eating whole foods and plants is something that I then began to understand was better for my body. As a matter of fact, the woman who makes the skin creams and hand creams and face creams that I use actually uses whole plants as well. And there's something to be said for the chemical composure and chemical composition of plants as rightfully as nature has made them. And as often as I can eat plants, I do. I've been gluten-free, vegan, and I guess vegan includes dairy-free, off and on, frankly. I do kind of deviate when I'm under stress or not really feeling it. And I know that as long as I just keep adding plants to what I'm eating, I'm moving myself in the right direction. So that's a little bit about my story. And I met Shirley Plant in part of my journey to clean up my eating and learn about eating whole foods, and basically also learning how to cook differently. And that's something that we're going to talk a little bit about tonight, because as we're adapting to a cleaner way of eating, we do have to learn new habits. And new habits can be so tough, and we'll talk about that as we get through. But let me pass the floor, so to speak, over to Shirley Plant. Shirley Plant has been a mentor to me. She's a cookbook author, Finally Food I Can Eat. And sometime tonight, one lucky webinar participant will win her book, and I'll send it to you. We'll figure out how we're going to do that, and we'll get you her wonderful book. Shirley, welcome, and tell us a little bit about how you got into eating real food and a little bit about your story.
Thanks, Maureen. I'm so glad to be here tonight with all of you, and I hope all of you can hear me. And if you've got any issues, maybe just type in there that you've got some issues. So I ended up where I am now because I got very, very ill in my 20s. Nobody knew what was wrong with me. They said it was all in my head, which, I mean, I guess it was, but it was also in my body. And back then, we didn't know the things that we know now. So I was finally diagnosed with chronic fatigue syndrome and fibromyalgia, along with multiple food sensitivities. I had about 2 pages of foods that I could no longer eat. I think there were about 4 foods I could eat. And I had also environmental sensitivities, same like you, Maureen, you know, after your cancer, perfumes, gas fumes, paint, everything made me sick. And you know, it was really soul destroying. You know, I was in my 20s. I was going to bed at 7 o'clock at night and sleeping till 12 the next day. And the doctors, when I asked them if I changed my diet, would it make a difference? They said no. And there was something that just didn't ring true. And I now know, since I've done so much studying in nutrition, that doctors only get about 2 hours of nutritional training in medical school. So, you know, it's not their fault. They're just trained a different way, and they're trained to write a prescription. But you know what? Food is a prescription. Food is medicine. So it took me getting into nutrition, studying nutrition, getting into my kitchen. I was a real sugar kid. My mom was a great cook, homemade stuff, but, you know, lots of sugar, lots of white flour, and we know that turns to sugar in the body. And sugar is the #1 food that causes so many illnesses. I mean, diabetes, heart disease, autoimmune conditions, and sugar causes inflammation in our bodies. And really, inflammation is the cornerstone to all illnesses. Really, when we look at it, that's where it began, and that's where it begins. And so I got into the kitchen and I started making recipes and foods that I really liked, with whole foods, with real foods, as I call them, you know, that don't come in a package, that don't have a whole list of ingredients on them. And I mean, it didn't happen overnight, not at all. Slowly, though, I started to notice that I felt a little bit better, just a little bit better. And of course, at the same time, I was doing other things. I was learning more about energy medicine and environmental medicine. But really, the food plays a huge role in our diet. And I know Maureen will agree with me. And same thing. I mean, I kind of thought I was healthy because, you know, my mom made everything from scratch. But what I've learned is that our food has changed more in the past 40 years than something like in the last 1,000 years. We've just altered it so much because of GMOs, because of pesticides, because of factories and prepackaged foods. And I truly believe our bodies are just not capable of, you know, digesting and eating these foods. And we're all busy. I know we're all busy. But it's a choice. It's a choice that we make, that we have the power. And that's really what I want to stress to everybody. We have the power. We have the power with our fork, that fork that's behind Maureen. That food is not only calories. Food is literally telling our cells what to do. It's telling our genes how to express themselves. So we can make a huge difference in our life and our health by the foods that we eat. And as Maureen said, you know, you talked about habits and, you know, breaking habits and developing new habits. I think that's what it is too. It's developing some new healthy habits. And we're going to talk about that tonight. And we're going to talk about this summit that I've put together to help you create new habits as well. And so, you know, that's sort of how I ended up here. And I ended up writing my cookbook for selfish reasons, Maureen. I'm the first one to admit it. I wanted recipes that I could share with my friends and my family. I didn't want to make 2 recipes all the time because I had all these food sensitivities. And that's how finally Food I Can Eat came to be, because, you know, I wanted some really yummy, I wanted easy recipes. I didn't have a lot of energy. So getting into the kitchen was tiring. And I, you know, I understand that after a busy day. I get it. So the recipes are easy and simple. We're going to discuss some simple tips tonight too.
Right. Good. So just a few housekeeping tips. I was so eager to rush into our content tonight. I didn't go over some housekeeping items. On everyone's computer on the right-hand side of their screen, they should have a sidebar, and it has tabs at the top: chat, polls, attendees, pop-ins, and videos. And we're going to click through a couple of those. Someone just asked me to keep the attendee list private, and I'm happy to do so. So that's going to stay private. I'm going to take the chat private as well, because I think we might get in some conversations that people might not want to be, you know, whatever they want to keep private. So we've already got a couple of good chat questions. But one of the things I want to do is talk a little bit about tonight's hour is going to be basically an open conversation. I've got some great questions already in the chat boxes. But I do want to express to everyone one of the great gifts that Shirley is delivering to the worldwide community, that's WWW, is her Real Food Summit the last week of April 20th to 25th. And she's got 40 speakers, Shirley?
Yeah, 40 speakers. Yeah, over 35 speakers. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's an amazing lineup. So a lot of specific items that we might not be able to get into the detail of tonight are going to be covered. It's a free summit, and you're going to have the opportunity to register at the end of this webinar. You can also go to her website, deliciousalternatives.com, and register, and there'll be emails and things like that out there. But I do want to tell you that we're going to scratch the surface on things. So if you have specific questions tonight, we might not fully get you, but part of this is really an introduction to the fabulous lineup of speakers, everything from ADHD to pet health to thyroid disease, hypertension, almost you name it. There's an expert internationally that Shirley has lined up for her summit. So if you've got specific issues that we can't totally get to tonight, we'll talk about it and maybe lead you in a certain way, but please register for that summit. The lineup is completely free. If you choose to purchase the videos, etc., it's only $47. So it's a ridiculously overwhelming amount of expertise, but we'll get some questions answered tonight. I mentioned the China study. I mentioned how it changed my life. I do suggest that everyone read that book. Shirley's book, Finally Food I Can Eat, is one of many books out there. Shirley, I don't believe your book is technically vegan. Is that correct?
It's not, and the reason it's not is because I had so many sensitivities that I couldn't be vegan. I would have only had one food to eat.
Right.
I had so many, and I wanted to really it to appeal to everybody. So, you know, those that were vegetarians, those that were vegans, those that wanted healthy meats. You know, I stress that it's healthy meats, grass-fed meats, that kind of thing. I wanted a little bit of everything in there because I didn't want anyone to feel limited, and I truly think it's a choice. There are certain foods that certainly are much better for us, and I certainly stress that we put as many green veggies on our plate as we can. And if you're going to have some meat, that's okay, but make sure a lot of your plate is veggies, and especially green veggies for sure.
So let's talk briefly about a couple of things that really helped me, and then we'll get to some questions. So again, I mentioned the China study. It was published and done by a gentleman named T. Colin Campbell. He's a PhD at Cornell. I believe he's still at Cornell. I think he's well into his 80s now, but it was the largest nutritional study ever conducted on the planet. And it led me to basically choose dairy as one of the main items that we need to leave alone. Casein, which is the protein in dairy, has all sorts of crazy things that happen. It's a protein that doesn't necessarily agree with the protein structure of our body, and it changes some genetic makeup, and it triggers certain genetically inherited diseases that might be dormant. It's a fascinating part of the China study. I was diagnosed as having a wheat allergy and having 2 of the celiac genes when I went to a wellness center about 3 or 4, probably 4 years ago now. So gluten was a big problem for me. And so that is my number one priority. Dairy's number two, and then meats and kind of animal flesh are number three for me. So I had to figure out some replacement foods. First of all, as soon as I figured out I needed to stay away from gluten, there was a burst in gluten-free products. So now there's so many alternatives to gluten in crackers and breads. But I will tell you that that doesn't mean that just eating all of that is going to be good, because the simple carbohydrate structure of those things is still something you want to try to minimize. The one thing that is one of my go-to foods now is polenta. And in many grocery stores, you can buy it like in a tube, like what pork sausage is sometimes in, but polenta. And I just slice it up. It's like in this, let me just, like tube. And I just slice it and put it in the pan with tomatoes, peppers, onions, spinach, etc. I will tell you that when I first started becoming more of a clean eater, I didn't have as strong a taste for fruits and vegetables as I thought. I had to relearn how to eat certain foods, and eating them a little bit more raw or with less stuff going on, like less oils and that sort of thing. So I had to relearn that. But one of the things that's, and we're actually going to send everyone who registered for this webinar a checklist for how to stay clean. I think we got 8 tips on there, and some ideas about how to stay away from danger when you're trying to change your dietary habits. But nuts, I carry raw almonds with me wherever I go. And that's really one of my go-to snacks, so I don't have to reach for a candy bar or eat something that I really don't want to eat. When I first changed my diet, I kind of didn't believe that I was actually needing to do that. So the human nature being as it is, I would say, oh, you know what, let me just have a grilled cheese. Well, I can remember being gluten-free, dairy-free, vegan for like a month or something, and I decided I needed to have a grilled cheese sandwich. Within seconds of eating that sandwich, my face gets all blotchy, my sinuses got full. I was in bad shape. My body, I guess, had gotten so used to not having that it really reacted heavily to that. And like a grilled cheese sandwich is like the opposite of what's good for me. And I know now if I do go in that direction, what's going to happen to my body. So I make choices now because I have the memory of how certain foods feel inside of me. Shirley, someone asked about high blood pressure. They said they've eaten, and I'll mention, they've tried almost everything. Let me go back to his question. Tried lots of natural remedies and still looking. Do you have anything that you can think of at the top of your head about hypertension, and any foods to either avoid or to add that might help with hypertension, high blood pressure?
Well, it's very interesting, and I don't know if that person has seen, there was a PBS special on last month. It was Dr. William Davis talking about the wheat belly, and his newest book, I think it's a wheat belly cookbook, and he is a cardiologist, and he gets all his patients that have hypertension, high blood pressure, whether it's high cholesterol, high triglycerides, you name it, he gets them off gluten right away. It's the first thing. Mm-hmm. And then he also tends to remove some of the other inflammatory foods, and of course the big one being sugar, and or foods that turn to sugar in our bodies. And this is what we are now finding out, is that sugar is really creating havoc in our body. And when we remove foods like gluten and sugar, and sometimes, as you mentioned, even dairy, we notice a huge difference with our blood pressure, with our cholesterol levels. And Dr. David Perlmutter also had a PBS special that same month about his book, The Grain Brain, and how grains really are affecting our brains and our hearts. So I would recommend certainly those 2 PBS specials or the books. If you can find The Wheat Belly and The Grain Brain, they are great books to read.
Yeah, I agree. And not to interrupt, sorry, Shirley, but I've read both of those books, and I will tell you that specifically The Grain Brain really spoke to me, because I noticed, I think I put this on the video, when people signed up for the webinar. But I realized when I, probably about a month into being gluten-free, all of a sudden, my thought process, I just was less fuzzy in my head and clearer in thought. And I didn't actually realize it. I will tell you another thing that happened when I changed my diet, and we've got a ton of questions, so we'll get to some of these. My eyelashes grew back.
Yeah, a lot of people notice that when they go off gluten, when they go off dairy, they don't have, as you say, that congestion, the stuffy nose, you know, their hair starts to come back.
Right.
A lot of issues, kids with ear infections, eczema, and I think someone had asked about dairy, and
yes.
Dairy really is an acidic food, and our diet, our North American diet, is so acidic. So that's why a lot of people, and it's about 80% of the population, are lactose intolerant. And many times you don't know it because you don't remove it for long enough. And dairy really is in everything. And even dry skim milk powder is in packaged foods. And so you really have to remove it for a set time. And I run every year this 21-day challenge where we remove gluten, dairy, and sugar. And it's really interesting at the three-week mark, that's when everybody starts to realize, oh, I am sensitive to dairy. Wow, I never thought I was. Now, some people are not, but some people are. And that, yeah, there is a difference between store-bought milk, and someone was mentioning, you know, goat milk. It's got a different property, and even, you know, organic milk or raw milk, very different. And I think everybody is individualistic. So you need to start listening to your body. And as you said, Maureen, you got to a place where your body was talking to you and you heard it. You had been off foods, you had a grilled cheese sandwich, and your body talked to you.
Right. And I'll tell you, I used to live on cold Advil because I thought I had chronic sinus conditions.
Right.
Now
Exactly.
I know that it was purely because of the dairy I was eating. And I want to elaborate a little bit more on the dairy issue. Shirley, you mentioned that dairy is an acidic food. It causes a higher pH, or actually lower pH level, because acidic is a lower pH. It causes a lower pH level in our bodies. And our body then has to readjust the pH level to the pH level that our body wants. And as we are younger, there's other ways that the body can do that. Once we get a little bit older, what happens is that it actually goes to the final source of realkalizing our body, and that is, folks, our bones. So I don't know why there's not a bigger voice out there about this, but the last thing you want to eat if you have osteoporosis is anything with dairy. Eat broccoli.
Right, exactly.
Eat kale. You want to stay away from dairy, especially as you age, because your body can't realkalize your pH level, and it goes for areas, other antidotes that are inside your body.
And it actually leaches calcium from your bones. If it can't find, you know, it starts to leach it. And that's why we have this whole generation that was told to drink milk, or 3 to 4 glasses of milk a day, that now need hip replacements at age 50 and 60 and have osteoporosis.
Right.
You know, we can get our calcium from greens. Actually, you get more calcium from greens, from sesame seeds, from sunflower seeds, from nuts, from greens. It's much more important to be taking a vitamin D3 for your bones, not dairy. I mean, it's a real misconception, and it's starting to change. We're really starting to hear, you know, Dr. Perlmutter stressing that vitamin D3, you know, 5,000 international units a day. It's so important for our immune system, for our bones, for everything.
And there's literally an epidemic of vitamin D deficiency that doctors are noticing, and they're linking it to cancer. I'm not sure it's a cause and effect. I'm not a scientist about that. I personally had a super, super low vitamin D level when I was tested. And so I think that there's other things going on that cause D not to be absorbed. It might be other nutrients that we're not taking in. But needless to say, and there's been a couple of questions about dairy, I will tell you that everything that I read and everything that points to, from osteoporosis to the casein protein, which is found in animal milks and cheeses, it just does not do good things in the human body. So I know people love cheese. I spoke to someone today who loves cheese. straight out of the China study, and someone asked this question also, multiple sclerosis, juvenile diabetes, and certainly the things that we know, heart disease and osteoporosis, coming from a very heavy dairy-laden diet. In Norway, in the Scandinavian area in World War II, the Germans took dairy away from the Scandinavian people for the time that they were under siege, etc. It was probably about a 3-year time period. And the Scandinavian people had never been healthier. After they were returning back to their dairy, their heart disease and high blood pressure rates went back up. Now, it's hard, I think, for a lot of us who were raised to believe certain things, that a glass of milk and it's healthy and it's what makes you grow. Truthfully, our science is so different now that is not true. I'm a big believer in rice and almond milk. Maybe someday they'll find out something about almonds. I don't know, but you know, I try to make sure that it's the unsweetened as well. So let me go through.
It's funny too, because you know, you think of cows and they have their young, and that calf drinks milk so that it can be the size of a grown cow in the span of a year, and that's because it's drinking the milk. So you know, people wonder when they put on weight, middle age, you know, what's going on. That we can look at that for sure. And I just want to, Maureen, there was a question there. I just want to go back. Iris was asking what is gluten, and I just quickly want to say gluten is the protein that's found in certain cereal grains. So it's what makes breads elastic,
yes,
doughy, and it's in wheat and barley and rye and spelt and kamut. So that's what gluten is, just so that you know, because I'm sorry, we were sort of throwing gluten back and forth, and just so you know. And I love that, you know, as Trish says, she's given up all grains. Good for you. And it's interesting because even Dr. Perlmutter talks about, and I was on TV this morning on a breakfast show, and we were talking about fats and how important fat is. You know, for years we were told no fat, low fat. And the problem was when we did low fat, we of course wanted carbs because we were hungry, because fat fills us up. We need healthy fats. Our brains are 60% fat. And we're seeing that, and Dr. Perlmutter, neurologists are seeing this, and with Alzheimer's patients, it's their brain is starving for fats. And so we need to increase our fat consumption of healthy fats. So I don't mean the bad fats. I don't mean the trans fats. Margarine, get rid of the margarine, get rid of those trans fats. Have coconut milk, coconut oil, nuts, seeds. If you're okay with grass-fed butter, avocados, those fish oil, you know, and someone was talking about multiple sclerosis, and I interviewed Dr. Terry Walls on the summit, and she's the one that reversed her multiple sclerosis. She was in a wheelchair, in a tilt wheelchair, unable to get around, in horrible pain. She created something called the Walls Protocol, which is a diet that's really laden in vegetables, certain supplements, fish oils. She's now able to teach medicine, be a practicing doctor. She walks, she hikes, she bicycles. It's an absolutely amazing story. And the other thing I just want to mention too is another woman that I interview on the summit, Judy Converse. She's a dietitian, and she's a pediatric dietitian. And it's amazing, as she said, how many children who are consuming dairy have so many issues, from those ear infections to eczema to asthma to food allergies. She says, I remove it. I remove the gluten and the dairy. And she said, all those issues, that hyperactivity, the anxiety, the depression.
And some childhood seizures as well.
Yeah, it's amazing. Food is amazing. It's so powerful. And it's just unfortunate that we've gotten to a place where the food we are eating today is not the food that our grandparents ate. You know,
right.
They would have never gone. Really, there weren't really fast food restaurants and treats and donuts all the time. And you know, if that was a treat, that was, for us, that was once a year that maybe we went somewhere for an ice cream or a donut or a specialty something. Whereas now it's a daily thing. You go through the drive-through, you get the prepackaged foods. It's daily. And that's, I think we're really starting to see that. And I think women who are, you know, our age, Maureen, we're getting to that place where we're, you know, going into menopause or whatever, and we're seeing that extra weight around our middle. We talk about that on the summit too. You know, why, despite dieting and exercising, can we not shed the weight? And it's very interesting. It comes back to the health of our gut and the foods that we are eating, because some of these foods, like gluten, actually cause little tears, little holes in our gut, which causes something called leaky gut. And that keeps the weight on. It leads to other illnesses. And so I just want to stress there's so many amazing topics and speakers on the summit that I hope everybody will be able to tune in, because I really think every question you have will be answered.
So there's a couple of questions I kind of want to address as well, Shirley, that we're getting through. The whole almond milk thing, you know, there are certain manufacturers of different products that are, let's just call them healthy seeming or whatever. And we do always have to watch the label. There are certain things that we might want to avoid that are in things that are supposedly healthy. Someone made a note about making your own almond milk. Certainly, if you have the time and the wherewithal, it's easy enough to do. I've made my own cheese with cashews. That's easy enough to do. You soak the cashews in the refrigerator overnight and you put them in a food processor, and I've made lasagna that way. So you can really do a lot of cool stuff with raw nuts, not just eating them, but yes, you can make your own milks and cheeses with them. Shirley, I don't know if you have those type of recipes in your cookbook to make cheeses out of nuts.
I don't, but I do have some on my website. Yeah.
Okay. So someone also asked about palm oil. You know, palm oil is one of those oils that can be, I'll just say, kind of like overcooked, just like canola. It could be treated, made, and as it's being treated and made, it goes through a process. Let's just say that if it's in a product on the label, it's probably an ingredient that you want to make sure you minimize. We're talking about oils and fats that you want to get as close to the source as possible. Anything that's on a label typically has been kind of like manufactured. And when you're just kind of using the rule of thumb, the more manufactured it is, the worse it is for you. And Michael Pollan, who's written a couple of really cool books, says that you want foods that are plants, not from plants.
Right.
I love that.
Yet, you know, and yet, Maureen, I've read lately, there's a lot of research, and I picked up this red palm oil. It's organic.
Okay.
Because one of my friends, you know, she does the whole keto diet. All she eats is protein and fat, and she's so lean, and she's got so much energy, and she's amazing. And she loves the red palm oil.
Yeah, okay.
So, you know, again, I think that's
more natural to the source.
It's a natural source, exactly. The coconut oil, and as you said, the almond milk, you want to make sure there's not the extra sugar in there. Someone mentioned the carrageen. Again, you're right. There's real controversy over the carrageen. Some people, it does upset their tummy. Again, I think we're all individual. You need to listen to your body. I think it's really important to rotate. So as you said, you know, almond milk maybe 1 or 2 days, coconut milk the next. If you're okay with rice milk the next, you know, let's switch it up. Let's not have the same thing over and over and over again, because that's then how we end up sometimes having these sensitivities, especially if we have a leaky gut.
Yep. Let me address a couple of questions. Someone has a question that is really a medical question, and we're not going to give you medical advice on this webinar. However, depending on how serious, Erin, your daughter's situation is with her tonsillitis, etc., I would take her off of all dairy and all gluten for a couple of weeks and see what happens if you have that time. Now, I personally have had surgeries that I think to myself, if I would have really stuck to a great diet, would I have been able to avoid my mastectomy? Would I have been able to avoid my hysterectomy? At some point, if you're kind of far along enough, medical science and surgery is perhaps the right thing. So neither Shirley or I can really recommend a medical treatment against a doctor's advice, etc. But if you have 2 to 3 weeks to work with, I would definitely suggest being pretty aggressive on her diet and see if she resolves itself. The one thing that we're not talking about tonight that I want to really put into play here is that we are chronically dehydrated. And it is one of my big, big issues. And one of the reasons why we have to actually stay hydrated is because we are eating chemicals that our body needs to flush out and deal with. Regardless of how clean your diet is, your kidneys and your liver have to do certain things, and the cellular level is affected by being dehydrated. If you are not in a routine habit of drinking half of your body weight in pounds in ounces of water, you're probably chronically dehydrated as well. And if you want to learn more about that, there's a fascinating, excellent book on the physiology of water and hydration called Your Body's Many Cries. I just lost the name of it. Your Body's Many Cries for Water. You're not, you don't have a disease, you're thirsty, something like that. If you want more information, we'll send that out as a follow-up email to this, but it's a fantastic book. I strongly recommend everyone feeding themselves half your body weight. If you weigh 150, it's 75 ounces. Drink 1 glass of water upon waking up before you do anything else. Drink 1 entire glass of water. And drink 1 glass of water before every meal. That gives you a lot of water intake just right there, and that's a great rule of thumb. It also helps curb your appetite a little bit to have a full glass of water in your belly before you eat. So it's
and I think a lot of people, sorry, Maureen, I think a lot of people, when they grab for something to eat, they're not really hungry. You're right. They're dehydrated.
Yes.
And so if you're trying to lose weight, that's a really good tip, Maureen, is have a glass of clean filtered water. Again, we don't really want the tap water. We want filtered, clean water. And do that first, and then just see, okay. And one of the beautiful things on the summit is on day 7, where we would do the mind-body connection. One of the guest speakers does a wonderful meditation about cravings and what we can do instead. And one of the suggestions is, of course, you know, to have a glass of water and just see, because maybe we're thirsty, maybe we're not hungry.
We had a couple of questions. I agree that Gatorade is crap. Don't quote me on that, but I will tell you that all the soft drink categories are beverages that really we should not be consuming. I know it's a travesty. They are common in schools, on sport fields, etc. I drank a lot of Gatorade when I was young, as a young athlete. That was when there was sugar in it and not high fructose corn syrup.
Yeah.
So now I think they're even a little bit worse, because the high fructose corn syrup is all GMOs, and our body just doesn't know what to do with that chemical. So yeah, I mean, you got to stay away from some of these things. And for those with children who their friends are all drinking all this stuff, you know, my heart goes out to you, because you really should start to curtail those types of beverages from your children, especially at the age. Why does orange juice always taste the same?
I see a couple of questions there too, Diana, to address, and I just want to say, yes, we cover leaky gut. We cover how you know whether you have leaky gut on the summit. That's one of the interviews for sure. And someone asked about detox. Yes, there's a couple of presenters that talk detox and the proper way to do it and why it's so important. So yes, we cover detox as well. Just wanted to see, there's a couple other questions. Maybe you could just, I have a filter system in my home. I think it's up to you. You can actually, during the summit, we're giving away a couple of Santivia water filters, which actually filters the water and makes it alkaline. So it's a great portable filter system, and we're giving away a couple of those for sure. If you can't pronounce it, don't buy it. I love that. Thank you so much. It's so true.
You know, let me address. Someone asked, how do you determine if you have leaky gut syndrome? I don't know exactly how you determine it. I think it's more or less something that if you're eating foods that are common in our culture, you're more than likely probably have it. I had it, and what the physician who was working with me at this wellness center expressed to me, she said that my sensitivities to smells, fragrances, and other foods was kind of the tip-off to her, because what happens is that chemicals actually get into your bloodstream that should be trapped in your intestinal, in your intestines, and not actually get into your bloodstream. What happens is that you start to have more stuff in there, and then you become even more sensitive. It's like a vicious cycle that happens. You know, all I can say is that if you want to give it a try, go gluten-free, because it's the most likely causative factor of leaky gut syndrome.
And I think if you're experiencing a lot of intestinal issues and bloating, and you know, it could be that you do have a leaky gut. Again, there are lots of tests. Not all of them are 100% conclusive. Sometimes you have to just work with your practitioner to see. Sometimes there's some supplements that can help to heal the gut. So again, you know, you need to work with your practitioner to see if that is in fact what's going on. It might be something else. And I see a question here from Diane. Hi, Diane. I'm so glad you're here. Is it okay to have So Delicious coconut milk unsweetened beverage instead of coconut milk in the can? For sure. And again, I think you're the best judge. I find sometimes the full fat coconut milk in the can is a little bit too much for my stomach, so I buy the light. So it's still the coconut, the organic coconut milk in the can, but it's the light version, and I'm okay with that. For me, the So Delicious, I mean, I love So Delicious. I can have it sometimes, but sometimes I think it does have the carrageenan in it, and it just depends on the day. Sometimes I can have it and I'm fine, and other days I will have that and the carrageenan. I know it upsets my stomach. So again, and it depends on the day, right? What's going on? Are we stressed? Are we not? Have we had another food that maybe isn't?
How much broccoli did you have yesterday?
Just so important to be in tune with your body. I think that that's so important.
There's a couple of quick questions, Shirley, I just want to address. The Himalayan sea salt, I suggest having a little bit of salt in 1 glass of water every day, as well as 1 glass with lemon. Some people drink lemon all the time. I don't really like that. I kind of get sick of it and whatever, but lemon, even though citrus is an acid in itself, citric acid, it actually has an alkalizing effect in your body. And I think the jury's still out about the total intake of salt. I will tell you that if you're eating lots of plants and you're properly hydrated, you don't have to worry about adding a little bit of salt.
Yeah, you're right. You know, someone like Dr. Robert Young, who recommends the pH Miracle diet, and my girlfriend who follows the pH Miracle diet, she had lupus. And, you know, he really stresses that we need healthy salt, mineralized salts. But his program is, you know, you're eating clean, you're drinking lots of water, you're eating lots of greens, so it's okay. But if you're eating a real prepackaged diet, laden with the canned salt and stuff, then no, you're going to have to be careful. But if you can make that switch over from, you know, the regular table salt, which actually usually includes sugar in it, to the sea salt, to the pink Himalayan sea salt, much better. You're getting your minerals, and that's a lot of us are missing those minerals. Or if you can do tri-salts again. But again, always check with your practitioner. It's so important because everybody's body is different, and we're all eating different types of diet.
I want to address the fluoride issue also, and ketchup. We'll go fluoride first. So fluoride is one of those things that I took out of my intake when I was diagnosed with cancer. I don't like fluoride. I know it massively changed the amount of cavities that kids, especially in the US, I'm not sure about around the world. I don't know if you'll find a dentist who doesn't want your kid to have fluoride toothpaste. We've got it in our water now. I think there's some cities who are actually taking it out. But I no longer use fluoride in my toothpaste. There's a few toothpastes that are available at Whole Foods. Actually, Tom's toothpaste used to never have fluoride, and now it was bought by Colgate, and now some of their toothpastes actually do have fluoride, so you have to kind of take a look a little closer. I no longer use Tom's toothpaste. I use another brand. I think it's called Desert something or other from Whole Foods that actually I find to be pretty good. Let's talk about the ketchup thing for a second, because ketchup can be one of those things that's in your food all the time. There are some people that are like real ketchup addicts. I know kids love it. And one of the things that I found, and I've heard this from others, but I've found this, is that ketchup is one of those foods that you really do get this like flavor addiction to. And let's just say that it could possibly be the manufacturing process putting in chemicals that are actually causing you to be addicted. And monosodium glutamate used to be one of the major ones. There's a couple of others, and Shirley, I don't know if you know the names of some of the others, but they're in a lot of processed foods so that we do get that flavor addiction. When we changed our ketchup at home, now our kids are a little bit older now, we changed to a pure organic. I think it's got tomato, salt, vinegar, and water in it. It was actually received much better and preferred at our table. Once you get out of that sugary tasting ketchup and go to actually ketchup that tastes like tomatoes, my experience has been that it's actually a preferred flavor. But again, like everything we're talking about tonight, you must have an open mindset for changing your flavor habits. Yeah. I had to go through big changes with that myself, and that's just part of that. Let's see.
Yeah, and it's not, it's not going to happen overnight. And I think it's one thing that I stress in my 21-day challenge is that sugar is addictive. Sugar is more addicting, and they say now that sugar is more addicting than cocaine and or heroin. And I love Dr. Mark Hyman. He once on a webinar we were doing was talking about an experiment with rats. And the rats were given sugar water and water. And of course they went to the sugar water. They had a choice. They could have water or sugar water. And then they took a group of rats that were already addicted to cocaine, and they gave them the choice of sugar water or cocaine water. And they went to the sugar water. They didn't go to the cocaine water. So I thought, okay, there we go. So it can be difficult. I totally understand. I was a sugarholic. I'll admit it. I was a sugarholic. It's tough, and manufacturers know that. They've got that bliss point that food tastes, and maybe ketchup is one of them, that bliss point that, just makes us, yearn for it. But right. When you pull it out, and when you've taken it out for a while, I can't tolerate any of that stuff now. Sweets, it's a chemical taste, the sugar, almost anything. And every now and then my husband will say, well, try this, just try a bite. And I bite it, and I'm like, how can you eat that? It's just so sickly, chemically sweet. Yeah. So it does, and I was once a sugarholic. So, it can happen if you just make, as you say, make the mindset. And if sometimes you cheat or whatever and you have something, you don't beat yourself up about it. You just say, well, that's okay. Tomorrow or next week, I'm going to choose to, to take that out again and see how I feel and see how my body is, and give your body some time to adjust. And, I know Maureen's going to send you this helpful sheet on how to restock your pantry and some ideas of foods, especially when you're trying to cut out sugar. That's where, the fat, something like an avocado or coconut, if you make a smoothie with low glycemic fruit and some nut butter and coconut milk, that's going to curb your appetite, and it's going to lessen your sugar fix. There's ways to get around that, around those addictions, those cravings.
Someone was asking if we lost the picture. Did anyone else lose the picture? So looks good on our end. Someone else has mentioned about the mercury fillings, and that their immunoglobulins actually, I guess, got better after getting the mercury out. That's been my experience, and also I think it's pretty well annotated. I think most dentists are on board with that as well. Much to my chagrin, I had a few big cavity fillings that had to be taken out and replaced. The amalgam that they use now actually does not totally agree with me, so it was a very painful process. You don't need to go into that with me, but yes, cancer does love sugar. And yes. It is one of the best fuels for cancer cell growth. So if you throw on all the toxins and you throw in some sugar, they're going to town on that. Just
and we have a whole day on the summit dedicated to cancer. I interviewed 4 specialists and we discuss everything about cancer. We have a cooking demo with a nutritionist that works at the cancer center, and she goes over foods that are really great to eat if you're just been diagnosed, if you're going through treatment, and even after, you know, after you've cured and battled that cancer, what foods to continue to eat to stay well.
Right. Someone asked about dark chocolate. Iris, hi, how are you? I personally have that in my house all the time. It's my go-to thing to satisfy myself. You know, years ago, I used to remember hearing about people who like say, oh, I eat 1 little square of a dark chocolate bar every night to satisfy my dessert thing, because I grew up doing desserts, and I used to say, how can you just have 1 little square of a dark chocolate bar? Are you kidding me? So now that's what I do.
There you go. Never say never, Maureen.
Well, I know. And the thing is that those chocolate bars cost like $8. So,
yeah. So you only want to have one.
You want it to last like a week long because of the cost of it. But
well, yeah, for me, it's the special. I buy the organic, you know, the dark chocolate, and you're right, they're expensive, and because I don't drink and I don't smoke, and so that's my treat. And you're right, I will have a nice little square, maybe once or twice a week, and that's it. That's all I need.
You're better than me. I think I have one, different flavors, cranberries in it. So there's a couple of questions about the summit and some website stuff. So let me just get to that. Number 1, in a couple of seconds, we're going to put on the sidebar over there the offer for the summit. And again, it doesn't cost you anything. So go ahead and sign up for the summit. It runs the week of April 20th through the 25th.
26th.
26th, sorry, which is that Monday through Sunday. So there's programs every single day. And Shirley, you have six speakers every day and all kinds of goodies and giveaways. And
yeah, and Earth Day is in there. We have some great speakers on Earth Day. Really fun. Yeah.
So that's the summit. And again, if you want to buy everything after that, Shirley is pricing that at $47 for like
$47. We're going to pump that out next week, Maureen. That's the pre-sales.
Okay.
So if you're interested in buying the summit, I would buy it then, because then actually the price goes up during the summit. So yeah, that's where we're giving a really good price pre-summit.
Early buy. I'm just looking through to see if there's any. We didn't really talk about BPA. I don't really know that much about it except from what I read in the newspapers. I haven't personally studied anything about that. Shirley, do you know anything much about?
Well, again, you know, when we're eating clean, we want to try and stay away from the canned goods if we can, and if not, we want the BPA-free cans. I mean, that's why we really want to eat single food items, fresh food items that don't come in a can, because I think it does play a role in our health for sure. I think more of the organic companies now are starting to have BPA-free cans or products. So again, look for that and demand it. You know, if we start to demand for these things, we're going to start to see it more and more. And that's really why I put on the summit, because I want people to start to demand for better things for our world.
Hey, Shirley, can you check out your sidebar? For some reason, when I go to the pop-in, it's not clicking for me. Oh, there it is. There it is. It just popped up, right?
There it is, yep.
Okay, so guys, you can scroll down and click on, I think it's a yellow button. I can't see it on my screen because I'm not on the other side of this, but check that out.
And if not, you've got it on your website, don't you, Maureen?
I
have it on your website?
I don't think I have it on my website right now. I will have it next week on my website, and another email will be coming out. Everyone who has registered for this webinar will receive a follow-up email in the next 48 hours or so that will include the attachment that we talked about. It's like a nice little checklist of ways to kind of steer yourself in the right direction. And it'll also have a link to joining the summit. So if you miss it here or can't click on something or something, technology is not in our favor here today, you will definitely all be getting an email follow-up with the link. And it doesn't start until the 20th. We have some time. And you'll be able to purchase, like Shirley said, the...
And when you sign up for the summit, you get a free gift, and that gift is cooking videos. And I share my favorite recipes for breakfast, lunch, dinner, and snacks. And so that's a real great thing to start to watch to get into healthy cooking as well. The recipes are simple and really delicious.
So you guys, let me just try this again. Some people are saying that they lost the offer. Should be right there. Okay, needless to say, you will definitely get a link. There was a couple of things I wanted to mention before we wrap up. We talked about the goodies that Shirley's going to have during the week of her summit. There's an emerging next level of science on the whole nutritional aspect and what nutrition and food actually does to our bodies, and it's all in the science of epigenetics. And Shirley and I were talking about this earlier. Everything from stress to chemicals to the food we eat, depending on what the responses are in our body, can actually change and alter our DNA. And when it does that, we're actually then can pass that on. So if you're in childbearing years, or you have people in your family who are in childbearing years, and they have some of these issues with the food that they eat, they could be actually altering their DNA and then passing that alteration down to their children. Now, I don't know if there's going to be a study that's going to talk about what was passed down to our generation. Those of us who are, most of the people on this call are probably between the ages of 35 and 60, let's just say. So that the generation that bore us perhaps was beginning to be exposed to certain things or had certain genetic changes. Needless to say, everything we're talking about today and everything that's going to be a part of the summit is add more whole foods to your diet. Your body receives the cell structure of those foods as family, as common to them. So your body actually is a better recipient of whole foods because it recognizes the cell structure and it knows what to do chemically and physiologically at the cellular, molecular level, what to do with the biology of plants, which is why I personally believe that GMOs are a much bigger threat to our epigenetics than we're really hearing, because the voices that are trying to say these things are being shut down by humongous international companies. Just eat as clean as you can every day. Add more plants. At first, don't stop eating certain things necessarily. Just add more plants. If you don't usually eat avocados, eat an avocado. If you don't usually eat a salad every day, add a salad. If you usually eat one salad, have two.
Yeah, if you have one green veggie, add one more. And just start there. And I just want to mention, too, that we actually have a whole speaker talking about GMOs, and he's including in the bundle his latest book all about GMOs and what we need to know.
It's crazy what we're probably going to find out. Diana asked if the webinar is being taped. It is, and you will get an email directly from this webinar either tonight or tomorrow morning. It won't be the email with the free giveaway, because it'll be coming directly from the technology that hosts this webinar with the replay. Feel free to share. Recipes are going to be at the summit for that Shirley is conducting. Any info on Candida and Candida meal plans and so on. You know, there's probably some specialized information out there, Erin. I don't know, Shirley, if you guys, is anyone covering? That's such a sub-special area. There's a lot of issues around sugar.
Yeah, and we talk about the whole gut issue, and with Mike Mutzel, we talk about, we sort of touch on that. It's not totally just on Candida, but for sure we talk about that, and yeah, it's covered.
Yeah, awesome. I'm going to leave it open just for another minute or two if anyone has another question. I love salads. I've been advised to avoid all raw food, which is really frustrating. I'm trying to eat. So I hear this from time to time, and I'm not a registered dietitian. I am a registered nurse, and I'm certified in plant-based nutrition, and I have my own experience. I will tell you that I don't know why you're supposed to be avoiding raw food, this person asked, but I will tell you my experience has been this. Once I got rid of foods that were actually irritating my gastrointestinal system, i.e. gluten and dairy, I was able to tolerate fruits and vegetables. I used to, in my mind, believe that I couldn't have more than 2 fruits a day because I would have such GI problems. I never knew it was because my GI system was all inflamed from gluten. So once I got rid of the irritants, I'm able to eat, I eat 20 fruits and vegetables a day. I never could have tolerated that on top of eating gluten. And I know now when I do have gluten for some reason, what's going to happen for the next 48, 72 hours. I'm not sure, Deb, why you're not supposed to be eating raw foods, but that seems like it might be a little bit of a backwards problem like I just described that I had for myself. And then Nancy says, can't eat lots of vegetables, kale, spinach. Again, I might suggest to you, if you're not gluten-free and you're having problems with nature's bounty, that there might be something going on that is not the actual fruits and vegetables. It might be something else that's causing the problem, that's causing you not to.
And I can understand.
Yes, there could be a medical condition. So again, another disclaimer, we're not giving medical advice, we're just giving practical nutritional advice and suggestions for you. So certainly if you have a medical condition, look in that direction. I will tell you that there are physicians who are now looking at these types of things that Shirley and I are talking about. They're called functional physicians. Functional medicine is the new term that actually points physicians in the direction of the cause and not just treating the symptoms. And so medical science for 200 years, or however long we've had physicians, have been schooled on treating symptoms and not schooled on treating the causes.
Yeah.
So functional medicine is a new science, and Dr. Hyman is a functional medicine physician, and he's one of the pioneers of functional medicine. So he'll be part of your summit, right? Who's on your summit?
Yes, and all the practitioners that I interview are functional medical specialists. So yeah, you get a very different look at things. They've studied the body, they studied nutrition, you know, and you may, whoever it was that I was asking that question, you may need to start with lightly steamed vegetables and not as much raw until you heal your gut or until you figure out what is going on.
Right.
Certainly for me, I couldn't do a lot of raw for a long time because I had issues in my gut.
Right.
And really, we talk about that, that most illness starts in the gut and ends in the gut. So
right.
Really look at the health of our gut. And I think so many people, the conditions that they have is it brings us back to our microbiome or our gut.
Right. Again, more questions kind of around gluten, wheat, sourdough, etc. If you have any GI issues, I'm just telling you from a very practical perspective, get rid of all gluten. And by the way, that includes beer. If anyone drinks beer, there's tons of gluten in beer. Really do yourself a favor and study gluten and what types of things, you know, to avoid gluten. I have found it to be a massively pervasive problem.
Yes.
And I can tell you that there is absolutely no dietary reason why you would need to have gluten in your diet. There are plenty of foods that you're going to get the riboflavin and niacin and other things that are actually in wheat. Just give it a try. And by a try, I mean a 3 to 4 week try. And do some research and study it and figure out how to navigate the world of gluten-free. Like I said, now there are so many cracker and bread alternatives that it's quite easy actually to go gluten-free. So give that a whirl.
And I just want to mention though, Maureen, too, and we cover this in the summit too, and I talk with Jennifer Fugo, and we talk about the dark side of going gluten-free, because a lot of people simply go to prepackaged gluten foods. And again, we have to start to read the labels, because many of the gluten-free foods are made with high sugary flours, you know, the white rice flour, the potato starches, tons of sugar to make it taste good, to make it, to give it that shelf life. We don't want you doing that. We want you going to the whole real foods. We don't want you just to give up, you know, a donut and then buy a gluten-free donut. That's not really what we're talking about.
Are there gluten-free donuts? I haven't seen that yet.
Oh, for sure. Yes, there's gluten-free everything, which doesn't mean that they're healthy.
Yes, as a bridge, however, it's a good way to start navigating there. There's a lot of people who are hooked on both cheese and bread. And I know that from my own personal experience, that was a good way to go. Prepackaged is disaster. Also watch cosmetics. Yeah, I mentioned that earlier. Anything that you repetitively introduce to your body, whether it be through the skin, the mucous membranes, the underarms, deodorant. I have a big issue with deodorant. Every single day, you're probably putting aluminum chloride underneath your arms and getting that absorbed into your body, and your body has to spend a lot of its detoxing time on detoxing from your antiperspirant deodorants. And the thing about the liver is when it's busy doing stuff, it can't do other stuff. And this same thing holds true if it's busy metabolizing alcohol. And
right.
I'm not going to preach about drinking because I enjoy my wine, trust me. But if your liver is busy metabolizing alcohol, it can't be that busy also metabolizing aluminum chloride and all the other toxins that are passing through it. The liver is a full-time factory running strong all the time to get rid of bad stuff out of your body, and we have to kind of give it a break. One of the things that I didn't like to hear when I had breast cancer is most women with breast cancer have 2 to 3 glasses of wine on average a night. Now, I drank like that after breast cancer. No, I'm just kidding. That's a pretty routine wine habit, and it's also something that will interrupt your sleep patterns.
Mm.
So I'm not preaching, I'm not being a teetotaler by any stretch. I'm just saying from a health perspective, everything that gets put in our body, especially those that are routine every day, are going to have their footprint on our body's physiology.
And I think it's estimated that women put on about 142 chemicals in the morning before they even leave to go to work, you know, between the shampoo and the soap and the hairspray and the underarm deodorant and the toothpaste and the makeup and the, you name it, the perfume, you know. And so, as you say, Maureen, we need to start looking at all of it, not just the diet, but what we put on our skin and what we have in our house, you know, those air fresheners, you name it. They're full of chemicals. Right. And as you say, our liver has to detoxify, get them out.
Someone writes that they have an overactive thyroid. Should I, whoops, I just lost your thing.
We talked about thyroid issues on the summit.
Veggies, yeah. I mean, I was actually hyperthyroid in my 20s, and I had a huge goiter. And actually, there's a big correlation with women who were hyperthyroid and later developed breast cancer. It's probably similar biochemistry where I'm reacting to things that were in the environment. I had a radioactive treatment on my thyroid, and I'm now on Synthroid. I don't know that there's treatment nutritionally for it, but come to the summit, and there's a couple of folks that have that. Someone's allergic to sulfites. Yeah, sorry about that.
You and me, babe. You and me.
List of products that you're using for shampoo, conditioner. Okay, here's the deal. Go to ewg.org, environmentalworkinggroup.org, for a, they actually test products based on a scale of, I think it's 0 to 10 or it's 1 to 10, for how many chemicals. 10 would be like it's going to light your house on fire, it has so many chemicals, and the lower numbers have less chemicals. That's where I found Garden of Eve, which is the name of the company that makes the lotions, face and body wash that I use. She's a delightful woman. She makes her own stuff, and it's so funny. I just ordered stuff for the event I'm having April 25th, and she said, Maureen, I can't make that much overnight. Do you mind if you wait a week while I stir up another batch? You know you're getting good stuff when people are making your lotions and creams with plants, and they're making their own batches.
Yep.
So ewg.org is a terrific resource. That's where I found Garden of Eve. There's other, they do sunscreen, toothpaste, every health and beauty. I think they actually do some food. I'm not sure. I haven't been on their website in a while because I've kind of settled into, I use crystal deodorant, those just the stone crystal, not any chemicals at all. And a particular toothpaste I've finally settled on in Eve's stuff. So go to ewg.org and you'll find it. Consume. Use coconut oils and moisturize. This is a good idea.
Yep, it's great.
Okay, folks, I think we have kept Shirley up long enough.
Gotta go get the summit ready.
Go line up all those interviews. Everyone will get information. Between Shirley and I, we'll find a way to get a winner for the for her cookbook. And if you get an email from me saying you're the winner, please respond. I'll have to mail it to you, so you're going to have to send me your mailing address. I promise I won't stalk you. This has been a lot of fun. Shirley, thank you so much for your expertise, and thanks so much for putting together the summit. It's going to be just an unbelievable amount of information for folks in this confusing world. You've lined up experts on every area possible.
I'm excited. It's going to be great.
It's going to be terrific. And thank you, everyone, for your great questions. This has been a very active, this is exactly what I wanted to do tonight. Just get your stuff and get it coming and just talk with you folks. This has been a fantastic time for me and for everyone here. I appreciate your attendance. Shirley, have a good night, and I will talk to you soon. And everyone, thanks a lot for attending. You will hear back from us with your free gift.
Good night, everybody.
Bye-bye.